Hey everybody, welcome to another fun episode of From Ahead of the Curve. My name is Geoffrey Platt. I'm the founder of this wonderful adventure. I created Ahead of the Curve really I'm passionate about technology, I'm passionate about you, I'm passionate about people. And I really wanted to bring some really interesting conversations and some interesting people onto some of these live streams and webinars to help basically promote some of the business and some of the technology and basically really just show you guys some of the different things that people have been doing, some of the really cool projects that people have been working on, and also introduce you hopefully to some different technologies that you might not be so familiar with, and to also kind of just rebuild and help keep our community together. Also maybe help create some different things that you can try at home, and just have some great fun conversations. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to my good friend Tupac Martir from Satori Studios. And yeah, Tupac, if you wouldn't mind giving us a little bit of information about you and about your studio, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so hello everybody. My name is Tupac Martir. I run Satori Studio and Satori Tech, two companies based out of London. Camera's just doing well. Who knew? So yeah, mainly we started doing visual design for live entertainment, and then slowly everything started moving into more technology. I started coding when I was 6 years old, which is quite odd. Stopped coding about 12 years ago, I think, 14 years ago.
You started coding when you were 6?
Yeah. I was a geek. I was a nerd. What could I say? So I started coding when I was 6, and then slowly left it. But technology has always been part of my life, part of what I do, and especially with technology and the way that we do things, it kind of get embedded into the shows that we do. We try to find how technology can actually be protopian rather than dystopian or utopian. So we keep this idea that technology is for good, which most people don't try to play with it. So yeah, and so yeah, through the times, we started with two, me and Muli, as founding members, and then slowly we became 4, and then we became 6, and then we became 10, and now we are 24 across 3 different countries, and just yeah, overall we're just interested in what is it that technology, live entertainment, the arts, culture can bring all together in order to create something interesting. We do a lot of work in concert touring. We do a lot of work in fashion. Now we're quite invested into the arts. We started calling them XR or VR or whatever. We just call it.
I think you've kind of created something a little different, though.
A little different to that, but yeah. So overall, this is kind of what we do. And if you have no idea who I am, and if you've never heard of me or never heard of the studio, don't worry about it. Sometimes even my mother doesn't remember me. So
So just out of curiosity, out of all the disciplines, like, which one are you really leaning towards now? Which one do you? I guess like which part of the market segments really kind of drive you right now? Is it the fashion industry?
Fashion always has a nice moment for us because it allows us to be very creative in a quick turnaround time at the end of the day. So I enjoy that a lot. I'm really enjoying all the arts. But I really enjoy, I think what I really enjoy is the multidisciplinary element of everything that we do. Is all the stuff that gets back together and put in together, whether it's ballet, opera, with with black tracks, with Unreal Engine, bringing Notch into it. How do we use a green screen? How do we create elements that you actually can't see that technology exists at? Because it's all about what we're trying to tell rather than anything else. And I think that's the most important thing.
And I think that's really cool, especially in today's scenario where we've got so many great, talented people kind of hanging out, being able to take some of these or learn how to use some of these tools and really put some of these assets to some really good use.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember I remember being in 2011 at Kulux Connect.
That was a while ago.
That was a while ago, and sitting there with some of the brightest minds of the industry, and trying to tell them what I wanted to do. And the only person that truly believed in what I was talking about was Gil from Cast. And no one could think, no one believed when I said, we're going to make this happen. And even in, I would say, November of 2011, as the opening for Nyeka was ever closer, many high people in the industry told me, you're never going to achieve what you're trying to do. 3 months later, we used black tracks for the first time in history, and we tracked an element in a stage with video, doing pan, tilt, zoom. Nobody, literally nobody could think that we could do it.
I always love it when people challenge you, when they say, when they don't have a belief that you can pull something like that off.
Oh, completely.
I think it's really a great motivating factor. I know with my wife, like I put her up to the challenge of becoming, we were always talking about, of course, being on TED Talks, and doing a TED Talk. And I'm like, oh, I don't know if you'll ever be able to get on a TED Talk. She's like, what? So, it's just like, okay, I'm going to do this. So, yeah. I also wanted to actually just take a moment to also say hi to everybody that's viewing. I see that there's been a few people popping up in the chats. So I want to say hi to everybody there. Say hi to Isabel. Thanks for joining us. And is it Chia and Kyle, of course, who's been a great support. Joel and Rudy. Hey, guys, thanks for joining us today. Sorry, Tupac, didn't mean to throw you off.
No, that's all right. What I was going to say is, but when people came and saw what we did with our moment with Nyeka, with black tracks, it changed dramatically the way that people looked at it. They realized what we were talking about when screens could have a language, when screens were dancing, and they were telling an entire story just by themselves, and that's what we wanted to achieve. That's what we try to achieve every single time, is how do we hide technology in your face?
Yeah, to make it's a really hard thing to do. I mean, it takes some time, and it takes a lot of thought to be able to do something like that. So it takes some very talented people as well.
It takes some very talented people. So for those who don't know what we do, let me show you a little bit of us.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, go for it. Hold on, let me just make sure that we can pull that up here. All right,
here we go. This is us. So that's
awesome.
That's kind of what we do, but everything comes from this. I'm Mexican. My parents are. My dad's indigenous, and it's always been one of those things where I've read obviously a lot of lit in my life from Latin American people. This is Eduardo Galeano, and I truly believe in what he says in here about the way that we communicate as humans. That we will always try to find that element from us that will be able to communicate with everybody. And in our case, that means a light, a prop, a video, a platform, an engine the way that we used every single one of these elements, not as a supportive element, but rather as a character that exists in every single piece that we do. So although sometimes they become, you know, secondary characters that appear in the story, they're always there to add to what you're seeing. They're not just meant to be decorative. Even the deco that exists is a character within the story of what we're trying to tell. And we try to bring that mentality to every single thing that we do across any of the different, I would say, media that we work on. Which brought us to this piece called Cosmos Within Us.
That's awesome. I just wanted to give you a pause because Marcus was actually asking if it was Lewis Hamilton in your video.
That is Lewis Hamilton, and I have a brilliant picture with Lewis.
That is awesome.
Yeah, I have a brilliant picture of Lewis. When we finished that piece, the photographer was like, "Oh, can we get a picture of you guys?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." And Lewis was a bit pissed because obviously he was getting ready to, you know, he had to run the following day, and he was thinking about the race. And as they were about to take the picture, you know, he looked very serious. And the photographer says, "Oh, Lewis, can you relax a little bit?" And I understood, you know, this is Mexico City. Lewis is trying to win the championship. Nico's ahead of him here, so he's in racer mentality, right? So I go to him and I whisper in his ear, and I go, "You know that painting that you have?" And he goes, "Which painting?" "Oh, the one signed by Tupac." He goes, "Yeah." It's like, "I am that Tupac." And then they took a picture at that moment, and he was just like, "Oh shit, it's you!"
That's awesome. That is hilarious. Such a great story. So tell us a little bit about Cosmos.
So Cosmos is this piece that we started thinking about back in 2017. At the time, we hadn't seen Draw Me Close, or we hadn't seen Alice, but you know, we were exploring within VR, and we were trying to find a way of telling a new story, a new type of way. And granted that we come from live entertainment, so therefore we wanted to create a piece that allowed us to have the element of life, the element of a changing narrative within the spin of a dime. And we came up with this idea of Cosmos Within Us. You know, that summer, Draw Me Close from the National Theatre and Alice from DV Group came out, and we thought, oh, this is really cool. But the performance is only happening to the person on the headset, you know. And we started thinking about the performance.
Yeah, it's usually VR up until even now, it's still a fairly intimate. A fairly intimate relationship that you have when you're in a VR space, because you're still, for the most part, in today's world, experiencing that as just an individual.
Yeah, exactly. And so we wanted to break away from all that. You know, we always said that thankfully now we're starting to get a lot of multiplayer and a lot of ways of being all together, which I think is great, because that means we're making a conscious decision as artists of whether or not we want something to be multiplayer, or we want it to be in a group, or we want it to be as a single person. And so from there, we kind of went into this idea of, you know, what should the story be about? What can we do? And so we started sketching some bits and pieces. Everything that we do usually tends to start from drawing it. So we draw it first, and then we start building. So we were trying to play with characters. We were trying to figure out how these characters could live in space. To make it more believable. We started playing with the idea and the motion of what is a dome of memories. How can I use 16:9 in the way that we have it? Because we have so much content in the world that is 16:9.
Oh my God, boatloads.
Or 4:3, and it's like we can't just discard all that content and just drop it away because we're now in VR. It's like how can we reutilize that entire thing? So we started, playing around. We started doing really quickly. We wanted to create a prototype, not only of the technical elements of it, but also of the story that we wanted to do. So we wrote something really quickly and developed it quite fast for it, so that we could understand if it was going to meant to be the way that we thought it should be. we started playing around with set, and how can we do physical elements? How can we do things that exist but then are being taken away? How can we keep playing around with things and bring that physicality that we're so used to seeing in a theater or in a ballet or in a play, or just on all these pieces like by Punch Drunk, and actually make you feel like you're part of the space. And this is, these are all thoughts that we were having. And eventually what we realized is that we were creating two performances. We were creating a performance for the person who's going to be in the headset, but we're also creating this performance for the person that was going to be watching somebody being in the headset. And eventually you realize there's two realities. There's someone in a virtual reality.
You got the person, it's almost like kind of an infinite reality, kind of like a mirror effect, where you have the person that is immersed inside of the virtual world is actually being seen as well from a physical world, which is a really interesting paradigm.
So by having different performances and different realities, we came with the idea of performative art, a performance that happens in different realities. Brilliant. And so from there, you have a physical reality. You can see, this is the prototype. This is early. This is November of 2017. And you can see a dancer with motion capture. You can see an actor on the floor doing some sort of voiceover. You can see a musician at the back, a secondary artist all the way at the back, which was the grandmother doing another part of voiceover. And then you have me sort of directing the piece live, and everything at the time being driven by Notch.
Yeah, I can see you've got Notch in the foreground. I'm assuming Perception Neuron was the mocap.
Correct. It was Perception Neuron. I think that was #1, like an old version of the suit. And the interesting bit about it is we did this with people in the audience, watching how we went from having nothing at 9 a.m. to by 5 p.m. People asking us, so what happens next in the story? And we're like, we have no idea. We did it. We were no freaking clue. Yeah, we're prototyping, and it was fantastic. But all these things evolved. From here, we came up with the idea of using a character of mine from Nierka called the Shadow Man, which eventually pops into the space. And, the Shadow Man now becomes a really important figure, because the Shadow Man is not only a dancer, but also is the person in charge of smell, touch, and taste. Whereas the rest of the company,
so they're basically delivering all those different senses throughout.
All that haptic element comes from them. They're human haptics. And then you have this other part of the company, which is all the sight and sound that you see and you hear, and how everything kind of gets split up in between the two sides, and how sometimes we become enveloped with each other. And by that I mean, so if you can imagine our interactor, which is what we call the person in the headset, and the interactor is at this point sitting there talking to a grandmother who's giving him cookies, and so the face of the person when he realizes that there's a cookie there to be held, and if you can see their other hand, they have a juice box. And then you have our dancers, our Shadow Man, using the smell of vanilla to give the sensation of cookies. So
that's pretty wild. So you're really manipulating all the different senses at the same time.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we know for a fact that memory is heavily affected by smell. So we spend so much time looking at what should be the correct smell for the different scenes, which scenes didn't need any smell, which some scenes, depending on where they landed in our curve, and I'll talk a little bit about it, meant that they were true smells or they were thoughts of a smell. And by that I mean we used to have a curve that took every single one of the scenes, and we drew a line across them. And anything that was above the line was more real. Anything that was underneath the line became more surreal. And by doing that, we were able to play with the colors that we were allowed to use, the sounds, the smells, what is it that you were looking at? What was the fidelity of it? You know, if it was very surreal, we were able to play with things that didn't maybe look so physically accurate. You know, the scene that I showed before with all the with the set build is a completely weird image of you as a child, and so the smell of it, for example, because it was so surreal. I mean, I keep saying it's my homage to so many directors. You know, it's the idea of the Wes Anderson and how you break the space and the movement of them. Is the Almodovar idea of a play within a play. It's this Peter Greenwood and Terry Gilliam of the surrealistic life, you know, of having your family the way that you remember them when you were 5 years old, 4 years old. But then the smell, you know, we made it smell like childhood. And what does childhood smell like? Bubblegum.
Yes, why not? Of course, bubblegum.
You know, and it was all this apparent playing that we're doing with it. So the shadowmen become this very important people that take care of you, and when you're inside of the experience, you feel very cared. You know, you don't know why, and its reality is there's two people around you. Now, a lot of the movement that they do is not seen by you, but is seen by the audience. You know, the other people that we're performing for. So we always say that when we perform, the 13 of us perform to the interactor. And when the interactor is now in position into the space, he becomes one of us, and we perform to the audience.
So is your interactor kind of somewhat of the conductor?
It's more like, how can I put it? I'm the conductor because I manage the energy that happens in the space. Yeah? The voiceover actor, who's also live, gives you the context and the memory of what you're looking at. Yeah? And the interactor actually becomes more like your DOP or your cameraman.
Okay, that makes sense.
And they're the ones, because we're reacting to everything that they do. In reality, what we're doing is we're following them. So we follow the way that they want to understand the story. And that becomes
was the story ever evolving? Did it change from performance to performance, or was the general outline pretty much the same?
So the story never changes. You know, the story is what it is the story of Aiken, a 60-year-old man suffering from Alzheimer's disease, returning to his home to try to hold on to the last memories before they fade away. And through that, we go through his memories, and we realize that there is one memory he doesn't want to remember. You know, he's like, I want to remember everything but this memory.
But this one thing.
Yeah, and you're gonna go, well, why don't you want to remember that? And then we go through his entire path, and we realize why he doesn't want that memory. And actually, by going through that memory and everything goes with it, he's able to come to terms with the idea that he will lose his memory. You know, he will succumb to this horrible disease. But so the story never changes. What changes is, what do you see? So, for example, in the first scene that you arrive, you are in this derelict house. Hidden within the house, there's 25 different sounds. Depending on where you move, you will unlock different sounds. But it means that your movements actually determine which sounds you're unlocking. So you might hear the people playing chess, but somebody else will hear the radio, and someone else will hear the TV, and someone else will hear you, playing with your sister or your dad telling you a story. But nobody ever hears all 25 of them. And so you end up taking memories of this man that might not be the same memories that the other person did. So when you're in the dome of memories, you might look at the first memory on the left, but you have no idea there's a memory behind you. And because each memory lasts about 30 seconds, you're never able to see a full memory. So you are, when you start going back and changing stories with people, you realize that you've seen different memories of this person. So the journey that each one of the interactor takes to the audience changes dramatically in terms of what is that content.
So people, even though the story is the same, the people that are experiencing it are all having their own personalized, basically personalized experience.
Correct. And the audience gets to see a completely different story in terms of what are those memories related to. We had Bob Bonio be in the show in New York.
Speaking of whom, will be the guest speaker on next week's show.
Oh, great! And when Bob went through it, he was very emotional after it. But then he sat through the next show to see somebody else go through it, understand all the mental elements that go behind it. Because you can see that image, you can see me at the background, you can see the string quartet, the keys player, our sound engineer. At the back, you can see John with all the special audio, which we'll talk about in a second. Then there was Alex doing all the visuals, and Ted Pallas is somewhere in there directing all the cameras. And so, Bob went through it, and then when he came out and he saw it with somebody else, it was like, I felt like I'd seen two completely different shows, because he got memories that the other person didn't get.
So mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished, yeah. So, when you look at it, here's me. So the concept is I conduct the piece in real time. There's a voiceover actor, which is live. Keys, cello, violin are all live. Visuals are triggered in real time. We have an audio engine that runs an 11.2 surround sound system, but also the interactor has open headphones so that we can decide which sounds go directly to your headphones and which sounds go to the environmental layer. And everybody in the audience also has headphones. So they're able to hear what the interactor hears. They see what the interactor sees by being projected or being on the screen.
Yeah.
But what they get to see that the interactor doesn't get to see is how the piece is being made. Yeah. But at the same time, they don't get to experience all the other elements that are haptic to him. And by that, I mean, there's a scene when you arrive in the forest. And it always cracks me up. The moment that we're doing that scene, you can see in their face when they feel the breeze, when they smell, when you think of a forest, what does it smell like?
Pine.
Yeah.
Decay.
So, yeah.
Dirt.
Water-ish. We ended up grabbing the molecule of water, a molecule of pine, and a molecule of fresh cut grass. And all put together gives you this sense of being in the middle of the forest. And then you have the breeze coming through. And it's coming from all sorts of places. And the face that people make when they realize this, because you're so immersed into what you're feeling, it's amazing. There's a little video of the girls.
I actually love this mix. Like, this whole true mix of all these different things together is unbelievable.
So for the New York show, we had 3 cameras that we kept using because obviously, as an audience member, there's elements that you can't see, and so the cameras allow you to see elements of him, of the interactor, and how they, how they smile or how they react that would be hidden to you by sitting on the other side. You can see our beautiful dancers there going through it, and it's just there's a scene with a dragon spitting fire, and it's such fun to see those things, and it really brings a smile to my face when they react to all those kinds of things. So yeah, a lot of technology has been thrown at this, like I said, but a lot of it ends up being hidden. The New York show was really nice because we were able to integrate lighting into it, and being able to control everything from a single point. So one of the oddest things about the show is visuals are run in Unreal.
Yeah.
Our sound engine is run in Unity, which is being triggered ADRs via Pro Tools. Our musicians have a click track and some of the arrangements, and they come from Ableton. We have an entire Dante network that goes underneath it. And then everything else is triggered directly from Unreal via OSC.
In terms of the arrangements on the musical arrangements, because that must have been a real pain to kind of orchestrate and keep all together, is it all within a sequenced order, or is it non-linear and you can kind of shift between one piece and another piece?
Obviously the music, it goes by scene, so that part of it is done. We have a click track, obviously, to keep everybody in shape. But we do, especially with the violin, I have moments where I ask them to improvise, or I ask them the singles to stay within a certain frame and improvise with those notes, so that I can weave them in and out depending on what is happening with the interactor. So if the interactor is really engaged with that certain scene, I can ask them to play another 8-bar.
I really love the idea of it being different from performance to performance. Like the whole uniqueness of it all is just amazing. And I was wondering, everybody that's joining us today on the show, if there's anything that you've seen that might be similar, or any other things that you've seen that have been kind of utilizing some of the same technologies. Maybe you've been working on some things at home. Tupac, I actually wanted I was going to bring this up later, but I was wondering if you had ever heard of, where did I put it? The Feel Real mask.
No.
It's called Feel Real. Actually, Berto introduced me to it.
Oh, is that the one that the smell over here?
Yeah, it clips in the bottom and it has little scent cartridges. Yeah,
the problem that you have, and this is what we learned when we were working with a nose, and a nose is a person that works with smells. So this is the reason why we didn't have anything spraying also the smells. And it's because your sense of smell can actually keep something, or it can keep a molecule for up to 7-8 hours.
Okay.
So the reason why we do the reason we do smells with the, kind of like how you do a perfume into the stick, is because some of those molecules can stay there for so long that we needed to contain them.
So do you walk around with jars of coffee?
We don't walk around with jars of coffee. We walk around with sticks that kind of come in, and the guys dip them in and have them all in folders, and they come out specifically for that moment, and they smell it, and then it goes away again, and it's hidden, and then it gets thrown away, because you don't want those molecules to be lingering around.
No, it totally makes sense. It's like walking through a perfume aisle in a department store.
Exactly. So we actually had to play a lot with the idea of which scenes needed to have smells, and which scenes, although we maybe wanted something, we had to chug it, because we needed to give the interactor a breather of nothing. Yeah. So, like a palate cleanser.
Yeah, like coffee beans.
Exactly. So, because otherwise they would get stuck into that. So it was so as we're moving through all these things, we're very aware of, if the nose said don't, this one specifically can last for so long in your own smell. So we will stop, let's say a minute before or 30 seconds before we needed to stop, put it away, and then we knew that the next scene wouldn't have anything, to make sure that it's actually completely clean. And in that sense, from the first scene, the second scene doesn't have a smell. The third scene at the beginning doesn't have smell. It's not until you go into the theater that it has a smell again. And it's the smell that we bring in is so different to the original that actually you're able to smell it really clean, because it's the complete opposite. So there's you spend a lot of time going through this thing. And what worries me with the mask, and obviously I haven't tried it, so by all means, if someone has one and they can tell me, no, actually it does happen, is does the mask have a cleanser? Do you go through something, smell something, and then do you get some sort of clean smell, so that your nose gets completely clean of any type of smell, so that the next time that you smell something, it's reactive to that way? Or is it a constant thing? I mean, I've never tried it, so, but it'd be, I'm always up for trying new things.
One of the viewers, AJ, actually just posted an article where the VR scent masks were banned temporarily by the FDA because they were considered a vaping product.
That's funny. But within what we did, there's also weird techniques and different techniques. We wanted to make sure that there was a sense of presence. Yeah. With the piece. So not only with the grandmother, and with the grandmother, you have that beautiful moment where she comes and reaches out and touches your shoulder, and then brings you around and gives you a cookie and gives you a juice box. And believe me, there's nothing funnier to see in someone's face, this bit of your face, than seeing a juice box in your headset, sticking your hand out, and grabbing a juice box.
Yeah.
It creates brand new neurological attachments within your brain.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Void. Have you ever tried the experience, the Void? Yeah.
It's amazing how much you're creating new connections in your brain because you've done something you've never done before. And we actually anchor people.
That brings us back to the humanity of us all, especially going through childhood as you're experiencing these different phases throughout your life, and you're experiencing them for the very first time. I think that's why people have such a fascination of watching babies and watching little ones eat something for the first time, that sensation of that new flavor, or that new experience, like eating ice cream for the first time, and that really kind of brings that part back.
Oh yeah. Completely. And funny enough, for Patty, who's our grandmother, and for Reese, who's our main actor, putting them into this was completely different to both of them. You have to wear this black suit with balls, and we're gonna put all these balls in your face, and we're gonna scan you, and we're gonna do a human out of you. She was just like, I don't understand any of this stuff, but go for it. Reese on the other side was all about it. He wanted to keep on playing, and he gives an amazing performance. I've now known Reese for over 2 years, and him and Rosie, who's our little actress, we followed them for 18 months, shooting with them every 3 months so we could create memories out of them as a brother and sister.
That's awesome.
And then we had another couple who were 8 and 4. And we also shot them every 3 months so that we could create a true relationship of brother and sister between the children. And then that goes into our dome of memories, which is quite a lovely scene. If I go back to then shooting traditionally, this is the scene that I was talking about that is completely surreal. And this is all based on my family. So you have my uncle, who was always trying to be funny and look like a clown. My other uncle, who my cousin was scared of because he was super tall. My aunt that only could speak about her wedding. My other aunt that was stuck in the 60s, completely smoking pot all the time. And we brought all these components to this part of the shoot. You can see the green screen at the back, and the green screen was important because within the surreality of this scene, we ended up shooting toys at 120 frames per second on a 4K camera, so that we could create this background of toys falling and reminding you that your room ceased to exist for you and you had to make room for your little sister. But the funniest thing was when we actually shot after the toys, 16 kilos of pasta and 8 kilos of meatballs at 120 frames per second, and then composed them so that when we were talking about dinner, they will be landing and falling behind you.
I was going to say, that sounds like a hell of a meal.
It's a hell of a meal. But it was such a complicated scene that when Ben from Unreal came to see the piece, and when he came out, he said, "I love that, blah, blah, blah," but it's like, one question. The scene of the universe into the theater, into the grandma, with a photogrammetry, with this, it's like, how did you bend my engine to make all that happen? Because there's so many changes of dynamics within that entire scene,
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to drive.
I give props to our creative technologist. I give props to Setani, who's our art director, to Mark, who is our Unreal developer, because my God, they bent that thing and put lighting in places and did all sorts of things, rotoscopied the whole thing by hand.
I think that's the fun part about being a technologist, though. We're made to break things.
Yes.
And if you can push things to their utmost extremes, it really starts to create innovation and creativity beyond. We start to look beyond what these things can do.
Yeah, and that was, like I said, that was the point. It was, we're hiding all this technology. Even though that if you really break it one by one, you can see where everything lives. You completely forget that things are not meant to happen that way. Liam over here spent 4.5 months of his life making that flower happen, because he just couldn't do what we needed it to do. And he broke the sense of solitude and sadness that we did for that scene.
Probably broke the poor guy's mind too.
Oh yeah, he believe me, he did all. But what it did actually is it allowed us to create a bunch of new workflows from Houdini into Unreal.
So that's going to bring me to the next thing, because we're kind of running a little shy on time. But out of the things that you think people could do at home, what would be your suggestion right now? What do you think? How do you think people could like basically learn from some of these experiences, and what people could dive into?
I think there's there's so much. I mean,
that's a loaded question. I could probably go on myself as well.
I think one thing that we learned really quickly about was polycounts. And making our a lot of our models a lot more poly oriented for the sake of what we needed to do. And is someone really going to be, looking at that thing that you just made from every single side that you think about? There's always a joke that Mark, our Unreal developer, has put himself in almost every single scene, as a joke. But part of it is to see if people actually find them. And but I think a lot of people, I'm not shy of saying that, I love that I have for Unreal Engine, the amount of things that we learned out of prototyping really quickly and seeing if something stick. Adrian Newey always talks about the 48-hour rule, and if a concept sticks after 48 hours, then it's worth pursuing.
Yeah.
But if for 48 hours,
really good piece of advice, because that applies to so many things.
But I think a lot of people are just not willing to prototype. They're waiting for the right time for the right thing, and a lot of times prototyping is the greatest thing that we've done. There's a lot of things that we landed upon that we will go, well, that was a really happy accident. And then we'll say, okay, great. We will get to a point, and then we will try to recreate that happy accident to understand why it happened and why it worked and why it didn't work. Yeah. And then by understanding those things, it cleaned up our pipeline and our workflows so that when we really needed to get cracking on it, we could do it. And you're going to say, yeah, whatever. Let me tell you a story. We were originally going to launch this on 4/24, well, 4/23, 4/24. We realized when we were moving everything to that side of the engine that some of the plugins that we were using were not carrying over. And Mark had to redo the entire piece in a month in 4/21.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. That's a lot of work.
That's a lot of work, but because he knew how every single one of the scenes worked and what were the workflows for each one of them, he was able to pull it out. You know, he pulled it off completely, but it's only because we went so many times backwards and forwards with each one of these workflows, and we had understood what was a happy accident and how did that accident happen, and how do we transmit this, and how we put that, you know, that we were able to, or he was able to bring the entire thing in less than a month back into a release that could actually run the way that we wanted to run it.
Yeah, that's a hell of a challenge.
Oh, it's a hell of a challenge. But, you know,
so the comment was learn Unreal and get famous.
But you know, but then you look at things like this, and it's the beauty of it. You know, it's when you realize that all your work is happening, that people are getting that feeling that you want. That's what you really care about. You know, when you see the interactor completely immersed into the space, when you see how the voiceover and the delivery of that voice goes directly to the interactor, to the audience, and how they're meant to be feeling, that's when you really enjoy what is happening, and the reasons why you took these decisions. You know, all of these elements are working together in unison to create the piece. You know, this is why I say every single one of these things is a character within our piece, because you wouldn't be able to do it all without it. The way that it looks, the way that it smells, the way that feeling has, all of it is important to what we're trying to convey as a story. You know, and I know there's a lot of things about storytelling and story living and all that kind of thing. I truly believe that, you know, within performative art, what we're truly doing is performative, you know, but we're really being story livers. You know, it's all about story living. It's not about storytelling, because we are making you feel things you never felt in your life. And it's the combination of all these elements that makes it, you know, using old school techniques of how do you light the space with a big old thing at the top.
Yeah.
You know, it's no different to the way that a lot of the movies are shot, but it's how do we integrate all these elements for them to exist.
So Tupac, I'm gonna just thank you so much for joining me today. I'm gonna have to wrap up at least this segment of our episode.
Yep.
I wanted to thank, of course, everybody for tuning in. We are going to jump into a Q&A session here in just a few minutes. But I just wanted to thank you all for joining us today. I wanted to thank, of course, our guest Tupac Martir from Satori Studio. And next week, we're going to have Bob Boniel on from Mode Studios to join us, which should be pretty cool. It's going to be a kind of a fun, maybe a little bit of a different session, talking about immersive storytelling and how we kind of storyboard and create these different experiences, and brainstorming some other ideas, of course, as well as to how we might be able to apply some of these things to our workflows today. So just wanted to thank you all for coming in today, and Tupac, stay online because we're just going to continue rambling on.
Sounds good. I'm gonna, for those who have never seen it, I'm just gonna run you. The last thing when it was the show was this, the little trailer of Cosmos.
Yeah, please do. Go for it. Hit it.
Memory.
Thank you very much.
Dude, that's awesome. Sorry. There we go. So it looks like there's a couple of questions that have already popped up. One of them was, what are your thoughts on Magic Leap?
I got a couple of them over here. I love it. I think the only issue, as we all know, it's the field of vision is so small. I understand the complexities of trying to make that many micro components, but at the same time, I always felt disappointed by the time I saw that. So, yeah, but I like it. I mean, we did a piece with the English National Ballet on Dust on Magic Leap, and it works a treat, and it's lovely. And I would love to do more of that type of work, but it's just a matter of getting a little bigger field of vision. I guess it's what really matters at this point.
Yeah, I actually messed around with a few augmented reality pieces of tech myself, a little bit more on the consumer grade. I tried Magic Leap. I tried the HaloViz lenses from Microsoft. And I also tried a product called North, augmented reality glasses built by North, and it was all basically the same problem, was just how much information you could get into these and how you control the lenses. So it looks like Facebook is actually up to no good, and
all our hopes in the Microsoft and Apple. So we shall see.
Yeah, we shall see who wins that battle. But it's going to be really interesting to see how that stuff kind of really comes into play over the course of the next few years.
Yeah.
Another question here is if you could elaborate a little bit more about the 11.4 channel surround audio in combination with the stereo headphones for the audience.
Yeah, so we've now gone into, originally the 11.2, not 0.4, 11.2 was just around the interactor. But then we decided to, as we grew bigger, so you have to think that when we premiered in Venice, we had one interactor and 4 people in the audience. By the time we made it to New York, we had one interactor and 150 people in the audience. So, the communal effect of it had grown massively, exponentially in a matter of 3-4 months. So at that point, we had already decided, and we did this in Amsterdam, where we decided to then put the entire surround sound across everybody, so that everybody gets every single one of those audio channels directly from where they're positioned. Yes, of course, by being 150 people, you're closer to one to the other. But nonetheless, you are getting now this basic information. And yes, you have open headphones, so that we can make sounds come from environmental left into your left ear, into your right ear, into environmental right. So they're all driven by our interactor. So we had to switch the perception of the interactor in the way that when they're facing this way, the audio has to come that way. And so the guys doing the sound engine are playing around left, right, and center about what they're trying to do, and how much do they mix on one side? Do the violins come from the left? And all those kinds of things. And Gareth and John from Magic Beans have been fantastic on it. Trying to find new ways of sending those tiny sounds of elements, like when the dragon's coming and you hear the flapping.
Yeah, often the distance.
Hear that one is like,
as it's coming closer and closer. Like, ah!
It's really cool. It adds a different element to the environment to it. Because all of a sudden you're able to share also with the interactor the beauty of the voice, because the voiceover is acting for you. The voice is coming, so you can feel all the cadences and when he's almost like whispering to you. But at the same time, when he goes into a childish moment, or when he becomes a bit more adult, or when he's confused, and there's a difference of all those sounds coming from here and around you than just coming directly flat from a normal stereo system.
Yeah. that's pretty darn cool. And very, very innovative and creative way of using the technology too. I mean, that's kind of one of the hardest parts, is to really figure out, we've got all this great tech, but putting it together in a very, in a way, a cohesive way that we can all experience it and utilize it, in ways that might not have been thought of before. And that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring you on, because I find that, like, even today we're in a place in the world that, well, most of us in our lives have never been to or never been in before, and now we're all kind of just trying to figure out, like, where is the world going to go? What are we going to do? And we've got all these people and creative resources around us that are struggling with the same questions as to, what's going to happen next. Where's the live event industry going to be in 6 months? Where are we going to be in 6 months? And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this too, was to kind of open up those conversations and also explore different means and different technologies that are around us right now, and things that we can experiment with and try. I find times like these are great moments for inspiration and innovation and creating new things and new systems, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're spending a lot of our time right now training workflows, understanding new workflows. I'm writing. If you can see my screen over there, or my board.
I'll bring it back up again.
And currently, no. My back.
Oh, okay.
My physical board. I'm currently writing concepts for 9 different shows. And each one of those shows has an entire elements that go with it, with technology and adaptation and workflows and new blueprints and all that in order to make them work. They're not as straightforward. So a lot of times we call it the show is just the driver to the big vehicle, and the big vehicle, like in Cosmos, is the performative art element of it. Creating this new engine, this new machine that allows to tell and give it to other people to try new stories. I was talking to Alex Colum in New York, who ran Unreal for us, ran the visuals on the New York show, and he was saying that him and his mates are already talking about what do they want to do. Now that the performative art is and can be considered a different type of reality, what would you like to do? What are they trying to achieve? What can they make better? And by all means, it's a massive provocation of what we've done now, to see what other people will readapt this and take it to a different level, the way that we saw Alice and Draw Me Close and thought, you know what? I got an idea. And even then, we have a new idea of, we are currently developing 3 different performative art pieces.
Yeah, I mean, now that you've kind of built the system and that you've got things kind of in place, it's time to batten things down, iron out the wrinkles, and create some new amazing things. And personally, I can't wait to be able to experience it myself. Somebody was asking when the next performance is going to be performed.
Well, as long as first they need to let us out. Once we're let out, I don't know. We've been having conversations in the US. We had conversations in Asia. We're having conversations in Europe. I mean, we had quite a few amount of things that were happening, and then all this came through, and so right now we're in a bit of a limbo. But hopefully soon. I know the guys are working really hard to put something together so that we can take it out on the road as soon as possible.
I was going to say, have you ever thought about making maybe something in the intermediary time for VR exclusively?
We have.
Trick question.
We're talking to NVIDIA.
Got it. We'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that.
Well, I just wanted to thank our audience again for tuning in today and joining us today with the talk with Tupac. This has been absolutely amazing. We're going to be doing this every single Thursday at the same time, or at least every single Thursday for the foreseeable future. Right now, I'm basically bringing people on. If you guys have anybody that you want to hear from, anybody that you think would be really interesting to have on the show, please, please, please let me know. Right now, as far as everything goes for Ahead of the Curve, basically we're just doing this completely pro bono to feed everybody information. I've had a number of questions kind of saying, hey, what's the long-term plan? I built this whole platform as well because, as a lot of you know, most of the trade shows have canceled. There were some really, really good sessions and things that people were going to be talking about. I thought it'd be really neat to kind of create a platform to be able to bring some of those sessions to life and still let the presenters basically present some of these topics and this information that you would find at a trade show. Ultimately, over time, I will probably be, won't probably, but will be looking for sponsors, hopefully to help out on the financial side of it all. But otherwise, you know, we want to try and keep this informative. We want to keep this for you, for the audience. And I just wanted to thank you so much from me personally for being so supportive and being so amazing, and for, you know, for just being here. I also want to, I'm going to do something more unconventional too, and I'm going to do this. She's going to hate it. This is Susie. This is my wife. This is the behind the scenes person that has been moderating the feeds and kind of helped me commandeer her studio in the other side of the house where she runs her own business, hence the Hello Beautiful in the background.
I thought
and, pardon?
I thought it was for me.
It is for you. Of course it's for you. And yeah, just wanted to thank everybody for being here and being so supportive. And don't forget, next week to tune in. We've got Bob going to be on the Bob who's going to be on the show again next Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. So thanks again, guys. Thanks, Tupac.
Pleasure.
It's been fun, man. Until next week, everybody.
Cheers.
See you then, and stay ahead of the curve.